And there's the magic area of it. This is the N55 engine out of the M2 Competition.
Sounds nice too.
That sounds lovely. So welcome back to another video. This is something interesting. EFI Parts obviously rings me up when they get the weird and wonderful coming in. Chris and Laura have rang me saying, come over, let me introduce it. This is an E36 318i with an M2 competition engine out of the new series BMWs. So let's dive in, let's have a look round, and then we'll watch it on the dyno to see what power it makes. This is just a really clean example of an E36 BMW. It's not even an M3 version, it's just an E36 318i, nothing fancy, but it's a super clean example of one. Now, the story I'm being told, we'll confirm with the owner at some point. He actually had an M2. So he had an M2 competition, he ended up crashing it, and the insurance company gave him the opportunity to buy it back. He bought it back, and then he's put the full engine conversion into this car. So let's open the bonnet, let's have a look around. This has been a project for about 2 years, by the way. We'll have a look at the actual conversion, we'll go into a little bit of detail, and we'll tell you how this has been converted. And there's the magic area of it. This is the N55 engine out of the M2 Competition. Now, yes, it's a bit untidy under there. This is still a work in progress. Basically, the guy who owns this has been having complete nightmares getting it to work, getting it to talk with everything, getting it to run and drive. So this is kind of its first testing on the dyno to get it mapped, to get it to run so he can drive it around. So everything to know, this is the later engine. Anyone who knows these engines, this is the electronic wastegate version. So the ECU it's actually on is I think it's an SCS Delta, I think you just see it there. It's an SCS Delta ECU. The reason why the ECU sits there is the loom they've supplied is a bit short, so you're kind of struggling in locations to put it. But again, as I say, the guy who's built this, that will be finished off. It'll be up on the bulkhead, he'll extend some wires. Again, work in progress. Front mount intercooler, half size. I'm gonna guess it could do with maybe a bit of a bigger one, but I don't know what these kind of run. I'm hearing they kind of make around the 400, the 450 mark. This has had the upgraded fuel pump. That's to allow you to basically run the extra power to see the 420 horsepower. That's what's been done. Completely stock engine, other than that fuel pump, because again, crashed the car, he had to use what he had. So let's have a look inside, because it is not on the automatic gearbox. It's actually on, I think, a manual 5-speed. I would presume, oh no, manual 6-speed. So let's have a quick look. So it looks like it's on the manual 6-speed box. I would guess, I don't know if I'll find out off the owner, because we're going to give him a call shortly. I wonder if that's the original gearbox of the car, or it's an M3 gearbox out of the 36. I would like to think it's the original 36 M3 box and a 36 diff. We'll find that out. These really nice Cobra bucket seats. I don't know, again, I don't know what the M2 bucket seats are like, but again, very, very nice added addition to this. Again, nothing much more really to report other than Kenwood edge unit. The clocks have yet to be finished. They're not done. They don't work with ECU, is it? I think that's an additional thing they're going to sort out. This is just a very super clean example of an E36 318 IS. So let's talk about what Chris is doing. So what he's doing is, this is obviously the air-fuel ratio on the pump from basically 1500 RPM to 5.5. So we've been doing all like the low down stuff and the drivability, getting the fueling right. He does low down pulls, checks the fueling, adjusts a few things, checks the fueling. But then I can guess he's doing different load areas of this per se map at different loads to make sure the fueling's right, all low down. And then he'll keep working himself up in stages, and then eventually we'll go 5.5 and above, where obviously I would have thought more boost than anything else. Chris always starts at the low down, and he always starts the drivability, and he always starts the fuel. let me explain what's happening, and I'll try and dumb it down because my son will shout at me if I don't, because he doesn't understand it and he keeps telling me to dumb it down. So, on an ECU, you have to tell it, technically, where TDC is. Basically, what you have is, you have a missing tooth, which is a timing trigger wheel. Anyone who's following us will know I have issues with mine on the Corsa. You have a missing tooth. You tell the ECU where that missing tooth is in comparison to top dead center. So you could have your missing tooth at 10 degrees before top dead center, you put that in. With this engine and this ECU, it's a permanent, unchangeable figure. I think Chris said 84 degrees is where the missing tooth is. Now, this engine could technically be 84, 85, 87, 88. This is why he's having to put additional timing in to get it to make power, because he's not able to reference the TDC mark on the ECU. Hence, in potentially, I don't know the timing numbers, that's why he's having to put more timing than you would presume it would be. So what he's doing with that screen then, that he's just obviously just pulled off, he's adding timing and to see where the power figure turns up. So he'll add, say, 1 degree of timing to see if that increases power or not. And basically, well, I say power, more torque. So you'll see where the torque peaks, and that's optimum timing. So that's what he's doing. As far as I'm aware, I just asked the question. He's playing with timing to get it to where it needs to go. Now the fueling's set, and he's happy where the fueling is. So he'll put the screen up now, comparing the two, to see whether the figures have changed in the right direction. Because normally, to my knowledge, peak timing, it starts dropping off. So there you go. So he's looking at the torque figure to show the timing's right. So see where one line goes above the other, and that's what he's pointing at there, the lower line and the upper line. When it stops, this is to my knowledge, Chris will watch this and probably cringe, to my knowledge, when that stops rising is when you've already found peak ignition timing. So he might add a degree, see if it goes up, add a degree, see if it goes up. When it starts peak leveling out and dropping, that's when you know you've got your peak ignition timing. So what we're doing now is, so to understand, obviously it might be noisy, hope he comes across. Basically we're doing a pull with ignition timing at what, I don't know, 20 degrees. We'll find out in a minute. And then we're going to do a secondary pull with a bit more timing, overlay them so we can see what the timing does to the map. So we'll do another pull now with a bit more timing, and then we'll overlay them and we'll discuss what's going on. So that's the second pull. So I think we're going to try and overlay these now to have a look at the two to see the difference in what Chris is doing with the ignition timing side of it, as in adding the ignition timing, which is increasing the torque. Right, so that's 2 degrees across the full map.
Yeah, so what we've got, if we were to look at the boost. Right, so there's 2 runs here, right, both at the same fueling, both at exactly the same boost, and the only difference is that there's 2 degrees of timing between them.
Right, okay.
So what I'm looking for is for the whole torque curve to come up
to
uniformly.
Up a step.
Yeah, exactly. So like we were saying before, if for example when I put that 2 degrees in, this torque only came up a little bit, but let's say the power went up a load, then it tells me that I need more timing up at the top end than I do in the mid-range.
I see.
Like we want to get to a point where I put a degree of timing in and the whole curve comes up a uniform amount,
right,
so that I know that the curve in the ECU is basically what the engine wants.
I see. Now can you see, so if you put a degree in and you see, say this goes nowhere,
yeah,
do you then adjust the map here onwards and that's perfect?
Exactly. So if I get to the stage where I've just put a degree in everywhere and the bottom half of the curve hasn't come up any, let's say, then I know that I'm right at the bottom end and I probably want to take a little bit out, but it still wants timing at the top because it still liked it at the top, it responded to it,
So do you still look at the power figure or is it more the torque figure?
I look at the whole curve, the whole shape.
Right, okay.
Yeah, I'm not interested in the numbers, it's the shape of the curve that's much more interesting. And so if it's come up uniformly for a 1 degree of timing everywhere, then I know it probably wants another degree or something.
I see.
When we will get to a certain point where it doesn't come up any for an extra bit of timing, And that's what we want. We want to find that zone and maybe come back a little bit from there.
And then you know that's the perfect sweet spot.
That you know that the engine's fairly sweet there. There's other bits to it, so there's exhaust gas temperature to consider. There's knock. You might get to a stage where it knocks before we get to this optimal MBT bit. We call it this optimal timing. But yeah, in a nutshell,
that's it. Perfect.
Very simple. Well, that's what we're doing. We're adding timing across the board until we get to a point where it doesn't pick up anything else.
And when you start from the very, very basics, you just know as experience to put a safe number in to start with and then go from there.
When you've tuned a few thousand engines, you know roughly where to start from, right?
Right, okay.
And so I'll just start from something really safe, get the fuel where I want it, get the boosts where I want, and then just dial the time again, little by little.
Okay.
Until we're happy.
Does the fueling ever change the more ignition time you put in?
No, not really.
So just once you've got the fueling map, it stayed?
Boost sometimes changes, so sometimes if you've not got enough timing in it, the exhaust gas temperature will be high and the boost will be high.
I see.
So as you put timing in it, you'll see the boost come down a little bit.
Right.
So you can I use that as well as a bit of a gauge to tell me how good I am with the timing. So if I see boost come down and power shoot up as I put 1 degree of timing in, then I know I'm miles away from where it wants to be.
Right, okay.
But we'll get to a point where the power you will put a degree in, power might come up a little bit, but the boost will stay the same. Well, then we're probably pretty close to where it wants to be.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Nice to learn, Chris.
Of course.
So obviously you'll have heard what's gone on with the timing. So now he's happy with timing low down. He will literally now start increasing the boost levels, because I think it was only at 10 psi. Start increasing the boost levels, then check the timing up top, because then he knows then he's already done all the low down timing. He's now looking at the high boost, high timing type area, where he has to maybe adjust up at the top, so not high timing, high revs, to see whether it needs more timing up top or not. So, to be fair, quite enjoyed the explanation, because you never really understand what's going on. So what we're finding is, basically the more boost he's putting in, the less power it makes, which makes us think there's a boost leak somewhere. We've had a quick overlook of where the pipes go and all the seals and the clamps. They all seem sealed, they all seem fine, but they're all on these factory clip-on clips from BMW, and they're O-ring sealed. We don't know if it's they failed, but we're having a mess. We see if we can find a leak, but at the moment, yeah, the more boost we had, the less power it makes. So I'm sure we'll get to the bottom of it. So the power's slowly increasing. I've come out for a bit of cool because it's hot in there. Anyway, the power's slowly going up now. We think that it's not a boost leak because we can't find anything. We double checked everything. We actually surmise the turbo's out of puff at around a 1.1 bar, 1.2 bar. So he's basically having to use ignition timing to gain power, because it's liking ignition timing, because he's just added another 2 degrees and we've gone an extra 30 horsepower. So he's going to keep increasing ignition timing, see where he gets it, but potentially the turbo's out of puff at a bar at 1.2 bar. So again, that will show the 2 pulls, so the black and the red line. So it's showing, like we said earlier on, that with the ignition timing, it is increasing throughout the range. So that just shows then, without boost increase, because you can't go no boost, it's out of efficiency, the timing is where the power is being made. Do you know what? We stopped the dyno to do that example, and funnily enough, it's showing it with this engine. We've just tipped over the 400 mark. I think it's around it's going to end up around 420-ish, because that's where these engines normally get to. So what's super interesting, again, as always, educational learning with Chris on the dyno, asking the questions, finding out the answers, and understanding it more and more and more the more I attend. Because again, you come to these dynos and you don't really know what Chris is doing in the car, or whoever's mapping your car is doing. You just kind of go with the process and hope it lasts. But to ask the questions, be involved and understand it more, and again, bringing that to you guys, I really enjoy it. So I think it's something a little bit different. We're going to keep in touch with the guy who owns it. We're going to probably go and see it when it's done and dusted and it's all been buttoned up and finalised and finished, and see how it goes and how it handles. We've obviously been out for just a little to see whether it still responds nice on the road. Felt very good for what it was. It's still an heavy car, it's still a manual, it goes all right. I think what we're kind of thinking is it's, what's the word I'm looking for? The original M2 has a very, very fast changing gearbox, and you can't replicate that when you've got a manual. So that's maybe sometimes why you don't get the same response as when you're doing an M2 that you will in this car. But this one will be far more fun, in my opinion, because it's an old school built car. So we'll sign this one off. Nice to see that an old school car is being restored with a new school engine. This is a crazy little build and I love every minute of it. So I hope you enjoyed that. Again, going back to somewhere a little bit different, back over on the EFI journey. Take care guys, and we'll see you all on the next video.